morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 1099 training presented for the state of Oregon for all users of the R-Star system. My name is Carlene Hancock. I'll be your presenter today, and actually I'm the main contact at DAS for 1099. So if you have questions today, tomorrow, throughout the 1099 season, please give me a call or email me. Either way is fine. So let's begin. For today's agenda, what we're going to go over are tax changes for 2024. There weren't a lot. 1099 eligibility criteria. This is primarily what it takes in R-Stars for 1099 to be produced for those vendors. 1099 form box review. For those that have taken the training prior, this is kind of same-o, but hang with me. This is a great review. We will go over the DAFR 7940 and DAFR NE40s. If you have not been pulling those down, there have been two that have been produced. One was in October and one was a couple of weeks in November with the month end close. They should be electronic for all agencies. If you are not receiving those, there again, please contact me or your SFMS analyst, and we can get those set up for you. SFMS and agency responsibilities, we all have our responsibilities in this world, and I just kind of want to go over the rough responsibilities for both of us. Changes to reportable and reported information, and undeliverable and copy requests. There's a slight change there as well this year and how we're going to process those, so hang on. Then we have some miscellaneous information that I give information on, which are those volunteer payments. Not all agencies have volunteers, but those that do kind of need to pay attention. We have prior year corrections. We have the EO99 report that we're going to talk a little bit about and what it's the purpose of. The 1099 processing timelines, any supplemental information that I just want to give to you, and then we've got wrap up and final questions. So that is what we're going to try to get through. Well, we will get through in the next 2.5 hours. I've timed this out. It's roughly 2 hours and a little bit. So I believe we will be using our time if questions arise. So let's get started. Okay, the 1099 announced changes. There were no changes announced this year for the second year in a row for the physical 1099 miscellaneous or the 1099 NEC forms. So if anybody are also producing 1099s out of a subsystems, this is the first year in quite a while, maybe the second year, that we have not had any significant changes to these two forms. I think they've moved on to other forms. Yay. There has been a change in the electronic submission requirements starting January 1st of 2024. The IRS is now requiring information returns of 10 or more to be reported electronically, and these are all 1099 forms and other forms as well. I got hit with this by 1042s. I probably will be reporting these electronically this year, but that is not under the scope of this training because I believe I'm the only one that does 1042s, which are foreign vendors. Previously, what was the standard for electronic, or the minimum for electronic reporting, was 250 forms. So that was a big sudden drop from the number of minimum forms to be reported. Where are you going to hit this? Two ways to report the information returns electronically is the IRS is in the second year of using the IRIS system for reporting. I believe this is the system that they are going to move to in the future. Fire system, of course, is their old standby. It's been up and running since they have required electronic submissions via the web. The IRIS system, however, does not accept all forms that are produced that they require. So keep your eye on that. If you produce any forms other than the 1099, NEC, or miscellaneous, I believe the 1099-Gs are now being accepted through the IRIS system. I'm not sure that they were last year. So if you are up and running on the fire system, you can continue to use the fire system. If you fall under this 10 forms or more that you're having to file from a subsystem, then you might want to look at the IRS system and see if you can utilize it. However, I want you to know that the TCC codes are separate and distinct from these two websites. So the fire system has its own TCC code. The IRIS system has its own TCC code. So be aware of that. The other thing you need to be aware of is when you request a TCC code, if you need to, this is not a I have to, this is only if you need to, needs to be as soon as possible. It takes up to 45 days to receive, but once the agency has received an active TCC code, there's no need to reapply again. So that's a plus, but it's really coming down to the wire on requesting a TCC code. So those of you that have to report from your subsystem that it doesn't come through the R-Stars system, we don't make the payments out of R-Stars, then you need to be looking at this and quickly. Okay, let's talk about how R-Stars determines if vendors are eligible to receive a 1099. There is programming in place that R-Stars uses. These will be produced automatically when a vendor is eligible to receive a 1099. They must be paid through a reportable comp object, and they must meet the IRS box minimum standard of $600 or more. So if any of these three things are not met, the vendor's not eligible, they won't receive a 1099. It cuts off right there. They must be paid through a comp object that is eligible with a reportable comp object, $600 or more. Then they receive a 1099. The vendors who are reportable include individuals, sole proprietors, partnerships, LLCs or LLPs, lawyers, all attorney-at-laws or PCs. It doesn't matter if they're corporations or not, they are not excluded from receiving a 1099 per the IRS guidelines. Medical service providers, doctors, PhDs, RNs, PTs, etc. If they're providing a medical service, doesn't matter there again if they're a corporation or not, they're not excluded from receiving a 1099 per the IRS guidelines. Yay! Trusts. So if occasionally I see this come through where an employee unfortunately passes away and a trust is formed, they have their own EIN or they have their own EIN and a named trust. Occasionally we have to make a payments to these trusts and they are reportable on a 1099. So just be aware that this trusts are reportable. Okay, this is what a reportable 1099 vendor looks like. First hurdle, eligible vendor, on the 52 screen, that 1099 indicator is a Y. So that is the first hurdle. That must be a Y on the 1099 indicator. Comp object. This is a D10 screen. It is not determined off the D11 agency object. It is determined off the D10 screen. It must be, the 1099 indicator must be anything other than an N, and their form must be filled, have either an N or an M. In this example I'm showing you, this is an eligible 1099 comp object for the box 1 of the NEC form. So 1099 indicator is 1, box 1, form is an N. And this is an example of a 1099 reportable comp object for a miscellaneous or 1099 MISC. In this case, the 1099 indicator is a 3, so it's other than N, and the form is an M, so miscellaneous. So N or M, that, or blank. If it's blank, not reportable comp object. This is an example of a report where the IRS box minimum is $600 or more. This report is, so this, in this case, potentially this vendor will be receiving a 1099 for $6,371.43, right here. Reportable comp object, box 1. Here's the vendor number, here is the vendor name. We'll be going over reports a little later in more detail, just in a moment. Okay, per the IRS, non-reportable vendors, we do have non-reportable vendors, because if you have reportable, you have non-reportable. These are, generally speaking, corporations, all S-corps, the exception being law firms and medical corporations. Nonprofit organizations are not reportable, but SFMS does require proof of this status when setting up the vendor and activating it. So if you have any questions, if you believe that you have a non-reportable entity and it's coming through on your reports, please do a little research or contact the vendor desk and ask them to please research why the vendor is coded as reportable on their 52 screen, if you have any questions. Or if they're, yeah, government entities, just by our very nature, city, county, state, and or federal agencies and any of their subsidiaries, fire departments, police departments, libraries, are all non-reportable. Just by our very nature, we are the definition of not-for-profit. Employee reimbursements, those are eligible to be reported on a W-2, so you should not see any OR or ever see a employee listed on any of your reports, and they are not eligible to receive a 1099, with a couple of exceptions, which I will talk about later in the presentation, where they may or may not be eligible. Partnerships, LP, LLP can also be a subcategory of an LLC designation. Vendors, this is an example of the 52 screen of a non-reportable vendor. So that 1099 indicator is an N, and that stops them right dead in their tracks. They're not reportable. Anyway, to recap the conditions to receive a 1099, all conditions must be met for a vendor to receive a 1099. The vendor must be reportable to the IRS, and this is determined by the 52 profile. The 1099 must have an indicator of Y. They must be paid using a reportable comp object, which is the D10 profile, and 1099 indicator other than N. Aggregate form or box is equal to or greater than $600. And if any of the above conditions are not met, the vendor will not receive a 1099 form and the income will not be reported to the IRS. I get a lot of questions on that every single year. So why didn't this vendor was looking for a 1099. Why wasn't this? I asked before you send that question to me, please go to the 52 screen first and look for that end, because almost always that's the point of the first bottleneck of no. Okay, anybody have any questions about why a vendor would receive a 1099?
We do have a question, Carlene.
Okay.
LLP is listed as a reportable vendor, but they are not if they are a partnership. Can you answer that question?
The LLP is part of an LLC. There are a lot of subsection on the LLC, including S Corp. It used to be when I first started this job that it didn't matter if a vendor, Dairy Queen LLP or LLC was started, came in and was listed as an LLC, they were automatically receiving a 1099. It did not matter. They cast a broad net across it, and we are always get in trouble if we underreport. You never get in trouble if you overreport. So our thought process then was, if it's an LLC, we're going to give you a 1099. Doesn't matter. But the IRS came up with lots of subsections of what an LLC, because an LLC can be an S Corp, it can be a partnership, it can be multiple things. LLCs, strict LLCs get 1099s. LLPs get K1s, are reported with K1s, and those are issued, generally speaking, by their accounting firms, I believe, but they are not reportable with 1099. That's why they're not considered reportable. They are if they're part of an LLC, not part if they're just listed as an LP or LLP. Does that help? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay.
Thumbs up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlene.
You're welcome. I mean, the IRS is nothing if not clear as mud. My opinion, I probably shouldn't have said it. Okay, we're going to talk, and this is if you've been to my training before, this is straight up review. Nothing has changed as far as what these boxes are. I'm only going to go over the boxes that are pertinent to R stars. That doesn't mean if you're going through a subsystem, you don't have to know other boxes, but these are the ones that are only used in R stars, or available in R stars, I should say. So this is what the 1099 form looks like. Pretty standard, not a whole lot. Box 1, rent. This is for real estate rental, unless paid to a real estate agent. If you pay rent to a real estate agency, that is non-reportable. It can be for machinery and equipment rental. Forestry has a lot of this during fire season. If the machine rental is part of a contract and includes both the use of the machine and the operator, the rental should be prorated between the rent of the machine, and the services of the operator should be box 1 of, the machine is box 1 rental. The operator is box 1 of the NEC. So same box, 2 different forms. So be very, very careful on this. If you're renting pastures for any particular reason or have operating leases, coin-operated amusements, yeah, state fair maybe, rental assistance, if payments are made to the owner and or uh, uh, that is considered rental income. However, I do believe that there is an agency out there that pays it directly to their clients, and that is not reportable. Only if you pay it, the rental assistance, directly to the rental property. Box 3 is other income. This is a nice kind of little catch-all for the miscellaneous. It's prizes and awards, but only if services were performed to receive the prizes and awards. Um, Deceased employee, remember that trust. Punitive damages are included. Claimant settlement payments reports the gross amount of the, uh, if you have a claimant who is suing the state of Oregon, wins a settlement, and there is no bodily injury, this is where those dollars are to be reported to the claimant. So it's the gross amount of the payment. We do not recognize, nor would we have any knowledge of what the lawyer's fees are. So we do not differentiate, and that's how the IRS is having us do it. The vendor must work with their attorney for determining the attorney fees related to their claim. That we do not have that information, nor do we want that information. Not our business. Payments to dependent care providers if only providing care for a relative. Now later you're going to see payments for dependent care for non uh, non-relatives. That's a different box. I believe it's a different form. But if they're making payments to a care provider for a relative, it should be box 3 and miscellaneous. Lodging. Oh gosh, we all love lodging. This is the one that's probably I get a lot of questions on. So payments made to a lodging facility are reportable to the lodging business of the person who benefits from the lodging. If the lodging is paid to a contractor or consultant, reimbursement per those for services for them, that's actually reportable to them on an NEC form box 1. So be very, very careful. You might be reporting to the uh, uh, lodging facility box 1, but if we're paying for the vendor, they also receive it on NEC 1, box 1. So be very careful there. This is part of compensation for services performed. So it's not employee compensation. This compensation, oh, wait a minute, that's the reimbursement. If it's paid directly to them. I apologize. I just made an explanation that I didn't necessarily need to make, although that is true, what I said before. If you're paying it to the lodging for the vendor, it really should also be reported to them. But this compensation is for performing for services, is non-employee compensation. This compensation can be offset on their taxes with the fact that they already paid it. If reimbursing for a state employee when the payment is this payment is not a 1099 event for the employee on a 1099 miscellaneous or other, it may be reportable on a W-2, but you need to work with your payroll staff to determine if that's the case. Now that I've totally confused you on lodging. Let's talk about medical and healthcare payments. Remember, this is a box that does not have a corporation exemption associated with it. So if a physician or other supplier is providing medical services or healthcare services, physical therapists, you're looking at massage therapists, psychotherapists, medical health counselors, acupuncturists, etc. If you're if you contract with someone that does pre-employment physicals or drug screening, or they provide expert testimony, if they provide counseling, mental health, or drug and alcohol treatment, diagnostic, or any therapeutic services, these are considered medical services. They also have to reach the $600 mark, but this would be a reportable action. Healthcare services that include charges for injections or drugs or dentures or any similar items. You go into an optometrist, I go in and they provide services, and then they turn right around because it's a very small office and they do my glasses. All of that would be considered services. So if you do that for uh, 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 I'm not saying that's a really great example unless perhaps corrections might have this, that it would be a medical service. Payments made to medical and healthcare insurers if they're paying for health or accident or sickness programs, and they're paying for those services and their physical services, they actually go in and use those services, those are reportable. The premiums, not so much, but the services provided. You are not required to send a 1099 miscellaneous to any tax-exempt hospital or extended care facility or a facility owned and operated by a government entity. So do not include payments for prescription drugs unless it includes services. So if someone just goes in and gets their prescription drugs and comes home, that is not a service, that is a supply. Supplies are not reportable. Gross proceeds paid for to an attorney, and this is an attorney representing a claimant that is anyone other than the state or an agency. This is someone suing the state of Oregon. Their attorney, if there's a settlement made, or any services we have to pay, those are on box 10, miscellaneous. Payments to an attorney and a claimant or a named client trust, this box is very, very unique. Remember when I was talking in box 3 about settlement payments, non-bodily injury? This is where this comes into play. The attorney gets reported for that settlement payment, gross proceeds in box 10. The claimant gets the gross proceeds in box 3. So if there's a settlement, off the cuff, the top of my head, of $10,000. There was no bodily injury for this suing for the settlement. The lawyer gets $10,000 in box 10, and the client, the claimant, gets $10,000 of their own personal 1099 miscellaneous box 3. Fun. One action, two different boxes, two different 1099s. Okay, this is the 1099 NEC, just a quick example. It's much smaller because really there's only one box that the state of Oregon uses, and that is box 1, non-employee compensation. Box 1 is basically payments to someone who is not your employee. They are payments for services in the course of your trade or business. They are payments to an individual, can be a partnership if they're part of an LLC, a state, and in some cases, a corporation if they are part either a lawyer and or if they're a lawyer. Payments are to a payment of at least $600 during the year. That's the box minimum. It's basically payments for services that are not medical, as we went through earlier. Medical services are paid box 6 miscellaneous. This can include parts and materials used to provide the service. Professional service fees, including attorney fees, but this is when the state and/or agency is a client. Independent contractor or volunteer payments, amounts paid to a volunteer in excess of 14 cents per mile are subject to reporting, but they've got to go a long way to get to that $600. Payments made to vendors or volunteers for meals that are 1099 NEC reportable, unless it is necessary for the payee to be away from home overnight. So if you pay for, if you reimburse them for lunch and there's not an overnight stay involved, or dinner and there's not an overnight stay, then it is reportable on a 1099 if they reach enough compensation that it's $600 if they meet the minimum box. And payments to care providers who care for people other than their relatives. Remember, box 3 were payments for people that took care of their relatives. Box 1 of the NEC is other than relatives. Operator charges include, and this can be included with machine rental, depending how they invoice it out to you. If you cannot determine the difference between the rental or the services, operator charge probably should be on the NEC versus box 1 rental. Fees paid by one professional to another, payments to witnesses or expert in legal adjudication, payments paid to non-employee entertainers, payments is if you have an exchange of services, no cash, no money was exchanged, however, there is monetary value, that's reportable, and taxable fringe benefits for non-employees. Let's talk about fixed assets for just a sec and how it relates to 1099 NEC. Occasionally, charges can be made that are both NEC reportable and capitalized as a fixed asset. So cost to prepare a site to receive a new piece of equipment, cost to repair a capital asset if it extends the life materially and or add value to the asset. Costs may be also charged to a capital outlay account and capitalized. If these costs are charged to services and supply accounts and then capitalized, SFMS requests that you use comptroller objects that are 1099 reportable, and these are in the range of 5105 to 5905. Basically, this allows the costs to be captured on a 1099 NEC reporting and capitalization. So dual purpose. The accounts payable personnel responsible for 1099 NEC, or if you're responsible for the 1099 NEC reporting, should collaborate with your fixed asset accountant to verify that all reportable sums are captured for the year for reporting purposes. Yay, we love working with our teammates, even if they're in other sections. Okay, let's talk really quickly about box 4. Now we use box 4 is backup withholding. It's federal income tax withheld. Backup withholding amounts currently have been maintaining at 24% of gross payment, and the amounts, but when reported, backup withholding amount is included in the gross income amount of the box of the payment reported to the vendor. An example of this be you paid someone $1,000. IRS told us that we had to use backup withholding, or for some reason their backup withholding box has an effective end date on it, and the system will take that $1,000 and they will pay them the vendor the 1,000 less the $240, and that 1,000 will be reported in the box per the D10, and box 4 for the backup withholding. That's all automatic. There is no comp object associated with box 4. This is truly and strictly programmed through to calculate through the 52 profile. And if that is blank, there is no box backup withholding withheld. We have no vendor at this time with backup reporting or box 4 calculated. So you should not see this in your reports. But you need to know about it because about 4 years ago, or the state of Oregon did that lottery for Get the Vax. That was all had backup withholding, federal withholding. So I got to see this in action. I had never seen it in action before for the state. So it was kind of exciting for me, but I don't want to see it again. So let's keep those vendors clean. And that's the vendors need to have a W-9 in place. Okay. Do you have any questions regarding identifying the appropriate box and or how to identify the appropriate form for any of your vendors? Oh,
I don't see. Oh, there's one.
was it Julie?
Yeah. Is the 600 minimum per agency or statewide?
It is statewide. It's an aggregate. So all of the vendors, as you know, are open to the state to use. Anybody in our stars is open to anybody to pull and pay. So I can have two different agency. One pays them $250. So it's going to look like, oh, on my report, they're not reportable. But another agency pays them $500. All of a sudden, they're over that $600 threshold. Neither of the vendor, neither of the reports show that the vendors are going to receive a 1099, but all of those payments are aggregated through our stars. And so that single vendor did receive from the state of Oregon uh, reportable amounts of $600 or more for the box, so they will receive a 1099. Great question. Okay. Okay, here we're going to talk about the reports that I keep bringing up, kind of mentioning that you should have received at least two of them, pulled them down for your agency. They are available through the Columbia website, electronic. So this is the DAFR 7940, an example of the DAFR 7940 report, which is anybody that's eligible to receive a 1099 for the 1099 miscellaneous should be on this report for your agency. And this is an example of what you would see on a DAFR NE40, which is associated with the 1099 NEC. These are 1099 NEC comp objects. The 7940 are 1099 miscellaneous comp objects. So basically, the activity that populates these reports are transactions from the I can never say this word, cumulative payment table. Generally speaking, the dates will be January 1st, 24 through 12/31/24, all payments or activity for 1099 reportable vendors. The warrants, it includes warrant payments, warrant cancellations, it'll include warrant stop payments, direct deposits. Now notice the different dates here of 12/28/23 and 12/26/24. And that's because unlike warrants, where we recognize the issue date of when it's issued, because that's when we get it into the mail. And once it's in the mail, the federal government says, up, it's been constructively received by the vendor because it's in the mail. Uh, Direct deposits are slightly different. The issue date on those are much different than when the vendor might receive it. There's a slight delay. So state of Oregon, what we do is we say, okay, any payments made from 12/28 of 2023 weren't recognized last year because they wouldn't have constructively received them until the new year, or they wouldn't have received them in their bank account until next year. Um, we're going to not report that. So it shifts that reporting for direct deposit people. So that's why you see those dates. Uh, Transfers with vendor numbers include basically are the BTs, and this on these reports is what I want you to be very careful when you're looking at it, because uh, it could have come from payment. Uh, Remember, we're on a biennium or mid-year close year. Our close date actually is 6/30. From 1 year to, 7/1 of 2024 to 6/30, 2025 is 1 year for us doing our accounting. IRS is on a calendar year. So if you're making BT changes to payments that are for calendar year 2024, but are now in 2025 fiscal year, you don't necessarily think, oh, I shouldn't put my vendor number on there. But you would be surprised how many times it happens, and it impacts the 1099s when those BTs. So I would like you to look very, very careful at those BTs when you see them on your report. Make sure they are for the calendar year 2024. If they are for the calendar year correction 2023, because you made them for the fiscal year 2024 close, you're moving them comp objects. Please be aware that this can impact the 1099s. So they may not be appropriate to report. And then backup withholding box 4, which we've previously gone over. I don't believe you should see these. Please note that a plus and minus on all of these, like warrant payments, notes if the activity will increase or decrease the 1099 amounts. If you like the cumulative payment table. Only vendors eligible to receive a 1099, so Y on the 52 screen on the 1099 indicator, will be reported on either of these reports. So if a vendor is an N, they will not be on this report. So also, they possibly could be reported on both reports. So you might see them on both reports, because any comp object with N, the system doesn't know whether it should be on one port or the other, so they'll put them on both. So just be aware of that when you're reviewing these reports. This report also includes all D10 reportable activity and all D10 comp object non-reportable activity. We want you to look at everything, because we don't know if an oopsie was made when the payment was or the transaction was coded, and whether it's reportable or not. You have the backup. You can research these things, and should if it's questionable. Pre-identified non-reportable vendors, 1099 indicator N, are not included in this report. So if you have a vendor who you think should be on this report, please refer back to the 52 screen and look at that 1099 indicator. And again, if you have any question on the coding on the 52 screen, please contact the vendor desk, and they can confirm or deny why it was coded as such. Okay, so the information on these reports, you're going to have the vendor number, You're going to have the IRS box that is reported, which is box 1, 3, 4, 6, and 10 for the 1099 miscellaneous, which is associated with the DAFR 7940. You're going to have 01 and box 4 for the reportable 1099 NEC on the NE40 report. And on all of the on your reports indicates that this is a non-reportable comp object, and they are not and so that is not eligible to be put on a 1099. All payments to the vendor will be listed, but only those payments that are identified with other than an N are eligible to be reported to the IRS. So this is all derived from the comp object, which is the D10. You're also on this report going to see if you use them. If you don't use them, that's okay. Not going to be there. It's not this is an agency by agency decision to have agency objects. So that's the D11 profiles. Those are there for you. Payment amount totals by comp object, IRS box, and vendor number will be provided on the report. CURDOC numbers and suffixes are provided on the report. Generally speaking, this is a ZE document, which is the liquidation or the payment. And how you can kind of tell when that ZE document was paid is the key is in the after effect of the ZE. So if you see an ZE 40124R, you know that payment was made in the year 2024, month 01, on the 24th on a regular cycle. If that is an E, it's in the expedited cycle. So this may be helpful when reviewing and comparing payments issued since the last 7940 or any 40 reports. So ongoing. Rough document numbers and suffix numbers VP, VX, VI, BT, BI are also on the report. Payments by comp object, IRS box, vendor number. Pay special attention to any vendor that only has a BT or a BI. Remember, I talked about this a little bit earlier about this perhaps potentially having to do with prior tax year. Entry for 1099 reporting, or if you're moving it, anyway, and then confirm the original payment was in the 2024 calendar year. We ask that you confirm the original payment was, if the original payment was previously reported to the IRS or not. And if they were, certainly just need a quick fix on that, and make any necessary corrections if a fix is needed. Review coding that doesn't appear to be appropriate for the vendor or the activity for the vendor. This can sometimes arise. I don't have a good example of it this year, but it is something that to pay attention to. Here again, if the vendor name appears to be a non-reportable vendor, there might be a reason for this. If the name includes Corp or INC, please look at the vendor profile on the for the following information. Vendor is indicator is Y. Might be appropriate. Vendor might not have returned a valid W-9 form, and they are considered reportable entities and will be included in these reports depending on the comp object used. If a 52 vendor type has a vendor type of an 8 or a 9. 8 is we are waiting for the W-9. 9 is they didn't get the W-9, a valid W-9 back to us in time, and they're going to be inactive. First, they're going to be reportable. and we will not open that vendor for use unless we have a valid W-9 in place. So that's very key. If the vendor profile cannot be updated, so the vendor profile cannot be updated without a valid W-9 form. So we won't just say, oh yeah, you're right, that has an INC or corp. Yes, let me correct that to an N. No, if it is an 8 or a 9, we have to have a W-9. It keeps us safe, it keeps you safe. Vendor profile, if a vendor appears to be coded correctly, except they have a Y in place. So we've received a W-9, but we didn't change it from a Y to an N. Please request a change of the SFMS vendor desk and ask them to update the code to an N. Anyway, these vendors will be included on both reports and will receive a 1099 if all other conditions are met. So they have met the $600, they've met the reportable comp object to receive a 1099. So potentially these guys can receive a 1099. We just need that W-9. It's very important. Okay, any questions about reviewing a DAFR 7940 or the NE40 or what information it contains?
Arlene, we have a question from just the end of the last one. Could you go over the difference between the 1099 miscellaneous or the 1099 NEC?
Okay, what the 1099 NEC, this is actually a very old form that was discontinued in the 80s and brought back to life by the IRS. I believe it was 2019, or starting in 2020. No, it's 2019. And what that is the 1099 MISC used to have box 7, which was non-employee compensation. So these are the majority of our vendors, frankly, who do provide services for our agencies, and we're paying them. They are not employees. They do not meet the employee criteria. Uh, they are the masters of their own destination. They have other clients. They can wear their own uniforms. We can't tell them what to wear, I think within reason. And they are not our employees. They are not an OR. These guys have their own companies. They work outside and they have their own thing. That's an NEC, so services provided. Miscellaneous are kind of what are the medical services, box 6. Lawyers that represent their clients that are outside of, uh, uh, we're not the client. If we were the client, that's box 7. They're providing services for us. If they're providing services for others, then that's box 10 miscellaneous. It's rents, it's lodging. So it's NEC is literally non-employee compensation. They're providing services for us, so that's NEC. And the reason this came about is IRS, in their infinite wisdom in 2016, decided we want box 7 from the miscellaneous to be reported on January 31st electronically. All the other boxes get to be reported electronically on March 31st, but only box 7. And when they couldn't capture fees or anything like that because because this was single form and they couldn't separate out the fees, that's when NEC came back into place. So that's the difference. That's really the reason we have it, is because the IRS wants to collect the fees for late filings or
Awesome.
early. Yeah.
Thank you, Carlene. We do have
Okay.
another question, and it is about the direct deposit cutoff date for 2024.
Mhm.
With the direct deposit cutoff date for 2024 be through Friday, 12/27/24, so it clears by Tuesday, 12/31/24. You have Tuesday, 12/26, which would clear by Monday, 12/30, slide
We go
32.
we go back 3 days is what we do. So essentially, let's see, December 1, 2, 3 days. So if it's issued on the 27th, we say it's not going to arrive in their account until the 2nd of January, for sure.
Thank you. She just wanted to be sure so she would be able to report the correct information.
She doesn't have to worry about it. The system does it. Unless she's issuing electronic payments out of her system.
She just wanted to communicate it to her staff. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the system does
Sorry.
it. She doesn't have to worry about it unless vendors come back and say, why this doesn't match. And I have had those vendors and I've had that conversation with them and then they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Perfect. Awesome.
Generally speaking, vendors, once they explain it to them, they're very understanding.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Let's talk about agency responsibility for 1099s. You have a great deal to do with these, frankly. Basically, you're looking at the accuracy of all information reported from your agency that is reported on the 1099 miscellaneous and NEC forms. You assure the accuracy through diligent review of the reports, 7940 and the NE40 reports. My mindful review of the BT transactions. Be aware of the cancel and stop payment timing and the impacts thereof. Timely corrections made to any identified errors, and that's a topic that's coming up. And timely review and resolution if a question arises from a 1099 receipt. Reporting to the IRS all reportable vendors and reportable payments issued through your agency subsystems. So it's not just me reporting, it can possibly be you. Determine if the vendor is eligible to receive an information return. Determine if the payments are eligible to be reported. Just like I have to do with my system, determine if they meet the minimum amount to be reported, and be aware of all reporting requirements and filing requirement needs. So remember, if you have under 10, you can still file on paper. However, if you have over 10 that your agency has to send, it's electronic now. 1099s issued other than 1099 miscellaneous or NEC pretty much are outside my purview, but you need to be aware that you may need to file these. And these are scholarships and qualified tuition, program payments, and that's a 1099Q. Could be grant payments, 1099G. Foreign vendors, 1042. Not listed, but it's a possibility. Anyway, so those are some of the agency responsibilities. You're responsible for the vendor information, oddly enough. Why vendor information and questions are directed to the agency? Because the vendor has the agency has the relationship with the vendor. You're the one that are asking them to do the service. You are receiving the invoice for payment. You're processing that payment. You have the relationship. The agency maintains all the documentation regarding what payments are issued to the vendor. The agency has the knowledge of what the vendor is supplying, whether it's services or supplies or reimbursements, and they hopefully this training is helping you kind of putting things in these three categories. The agency is also again responsible for the accuracy of all reported information. SFMS will not manually change any reporting amount reported amount, I should say, without an agency completing a 1099 change request form signed by an agency authorized signer. Now, I have probably each and every one of you on a contact list. You, by taking this class, are your agency has said you are a responsible individual. We are trusting you to make any corrections, and I will use you are now an authorized signer essentially by taking this class and or being on that contact list that I maintain. If you don't know if you're on that contact list, either ask your manager or you can call me or email me, and I'll let you know if you're on that list. But that's pretty much what I'm looking for, is someone in the know to make those changes. Any fees assessed by the IRS, penalties if assessed due to statements not being generated or reported to the IRS, can be assessed a $250 per statement fee. I've never seen this, but they can do it. Incorrect reporting is anywhere from $30 to $100 per statement. There has been talk about upping the amount of the per statement fee. They have not done so, to my knowledge. But that's basically providing correct payee statements without reasonable cause, reporting in a correct box on the correct form, and reporting the correct amount. So if you ask me to do a correction or a correction is needed and we do it on a timely basis, no fees incurred, no harm, no foul. But if we intentionally disregard that a statement needs to be changed, and I don't receive a request for change, $530 per statement can be issued without a maximum. That's interest in that, and that is all on the agency. So getting these right is a big thing. Now, I will add this. Last year, we issued more than, between the two statements, probably about 10,000 plus forms in that first printing at the middle of January, endish of January. I think I received about 150 corrections on those 10,000 issued 1099s. If you do the math, that's a really good percentage. I'm very, very proud of all of you. You have been very diligent in getting those corrections in and getting them right. But this is the reason you do it, is those fees. Everybody's afraid of those fees. I'm afraid of those fees. SFMS responsibility. We are responsible for getting those printed and mailed, the original and all corrected forms thereafter, for both the miscellaneous and NEC to the eligible vendors paid through R-Stars. All federal and state electronic filings that are issued out of R-Stars that are original and or corrections, adjustments. And we make sure that everything meets all the reporting, and we make sure that we meet all reporting deadlines for 1099 forms. That means January 31st, I will have an electronic submission to the IRS for NEC. The reason it was cut out of the MISC. And March 31st of 2025 is the due date for 1099 miscellaneous, and generally speaking, all other 1099s. But please, if you issue anything else, please research when those electronic filings are due and or the paper submissions are due. If you're doing paper, I believe it's 2020, it's February 28th. But be aware and be responsible for those, the ones that you issue. The ones out of R-Stars, those are my responsibility. Also, 1099 contact for all submitted forms for the vendor. My phone number is on every single 1099 issued out of R-Stars. So they can call me directly. I will respond. I answer any questions that arise from the vendors that I am able to. And if I cannot, I will alert the agency if further review is being requested by the vendor, because there again, the agency has the relationship with them. They have the backup documentation. I do not have access to your documentation. So I can't go out and say, yeah, let me research that for you. No, I don't have that ability. So I will push that back onto your desk um, and for that. But it is my responsibility to be your line of contact. By the way, when I'm answering those phones, I will never give up an agency contact's name and or phone number to those vendors. I will always say, I will contact my contact I will send an email to my contact uh, and let them know your questions and that research is needed on this. And if it is a valid 1099, they will contact you and give you the reason why. If it's not, then you will see a correction come through because they will send me a 1099 correction request. So that is SFMS's responsibility and the agency's responsibility. So any questions on your responsibilities or what is expected of SFMS? Oh, okay, doesn't look like anybody has any questions, so we're moving right along here. Okay, let's talk about the changes that you're going to identify using your reports. And these are changes that are prior to January 17th, 2025, when December closes, month-end close. The reports that are provided to the agency are what you're going to be reviewing. Obviously, I've been talking about it. The last one that was created was on November 18th, and it is still available for review if the agency has not pulled down their electronic report. If you have issues bringing down that report, please either contact your SFMS analyst or myself, and I can assist you. December 31st is going to be the next printing. Now, I realize that that does not coincide with November close, which happens on December, 13th, next Friday. This is the last day of December. So we want to capture as many payments, as much of the information through December 31st as absolutely possible. So this will create in the nightly batch cycle on December 31st and will be available for the agencies to pick up in electronic format on January 2nd, I believe is when we come back to work. Yes, January 2nd, Thursday. And that'll be for through December 31st. And then we have it again. The very, very final ones will be produced on January 17th of 2025. Now, any corrections that need to be made can be made by the agency, and we prefer that they're be made by the agency prior to that January 17th date. And you're going to be using and we're going to talk about that. So, incorrect, if you identify that a comp object is identified as incorrect during your review prior to January 17th, changes can be completed by the agency. You want to use TC code 415416 to process the transfer to correct the comp object. In January, of course, you want to use a correction date, effective end date or effective date of December 31st, 2024. So it is in the 2024 tax year. If you use a 2025 date, it's going to put it in the next tax year, which is it impacts everybody's 1099s. Those BTs, remember the corrections. The date is all important. Include the vendor number on these transactions when you're reclassing it. So the change will be reflected on those reports. And then use the effective date 12/31/2024 for those corrections. Changes identify, okay. All T-code 415, 416 transactions with a 2025 effective date will be included in next year's taxes on the DAFR 7940 and NE40. So date is very, very important to be aware of. And so that's why the big caution flag is out. The effective date must be no later than December 31st, 24 to affect the tax year 2024. And please, please, please do not process a T-code 415, 416 transfer for a 2024 transaction that includes a vendor number after January 17th, because again, that will affect 2025 1099 reporting. And you don't want to try do that. So if you, anything that is a subsequent reclassification after the fact, after taxes have been done, you don't want to use that vendor number. You can do the comp object, that's okay, just don't include the vendor number in the transaction. Because once you use that in vendor number, it attaches that transaction to that vendor. Hope that makes sense. Okay, after January 17th, you can do a manual change request form, and those are out on our website. We do not accept vendor manual changes until after January 17th, because up to that point, the agency is making that correction. So the manual changes come in and identify what form the agency needs to correct. So you need to either correct a 1099 NEC, 1099 miscellaneous. If you need to correct both forms, I'm getting two different forms. There are two different change request forms out there. You're going to reference your 7940 and your NE40 that you have saved that was produced on the nightly batch cycle on the 17th, January 17th, for the beginning amount number on that form. To complete the correct complete the correct 1099 change request form, be it one or the other, you want to then you want excuse me. You want to, if you're changing amounts, you want to change, you have a beginning amount, which is on your report, only your report. That's your beginning number. And then if you're changing what you want it to, what it should be, then that is, you're going to up the number. If you're removing the payment amount, if we shouldn't have reported it at all, or it shouldn't be reported at all, then you're at the beginning amount, and then the ending balance is going to be a 0. So you say, no, this shouldn't have been reported. Oopsie, we didn't catch it soon enough. It's a 0. If you are moving payment amounts to a different box, you can do this through this form just by saying, okay, we started with this box. This is specifically the MISC form because there are multiple boxes. We're starting with this amount that was reported on the form for this box, but we want to change that box to 0 or whatever it should be, and then we're changing this other box from whatever it was reported for the agency amount only to what it should have been reported for by that agency. So that can be different on that. And then if there is a change in the vendor TIN, now this can occur as well because we all know that the vendors sometimes update, they get bought out, so they have a different TIN, same name, different TIN. Or if they've gone from a sole proprietorship social security number to a still a taxable or reportable EIN, but it should be a different EIN, that can happen as well. That also requires a manual change. If it that is reported to me through these change request forms. You need to email me change request forms as soon as possible after the 17th, as soon as you know the change. It doesn't matter. I am doing changes through April. These are at least scheduled changes through April. This is what the miscellaneous change request form looks like. So basically, you want to send it to me. I would like your agency name, your agency 3-digit number, like DAS is 107, um, uh, a Commission for the Blind 585. Just the 3-digit. I don't need 5 digits. Just the 3 will do me. Who's requesting it? And then I need the authorized signer on this. Phone number if I have any questions, email if I have any questions. I'd like the vendor name, the tax year that's being changed with the vendor number. And then the reason for the change, because I'm a nosy Nancy. I want to know why. Why is it being changed? Oops, we didn't catch it. Information came to light after the fact. Any of that. I want to know why there's a change. Also, if the IRS is ever auditing us, and they did, I believe, in 2015, 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. They're going to want to see any reason for why any manual changes and who requested it. And did you just do it just because, you know? And no, I do not do it just because. It'll only ever come from you. What boxes are impacted? Is it rents? So it needs to be rent, it needs to be other income, or it doesn't need to be other income. What are the changes up and down? It's pretty logical, but if you ever come up and you have a question regarding this form, there again, I'm always available and I'm more than happy to walk through this form with anybody. Uh, uh, but I will be looking for that authorized signature, and I don't just accept it from Joe Blow. The other thing is this is an internal form. If a vendor sends me this form, I will not honor it because they are not an authorized signer, nor should it be in their capacity as a non-state employee to fill this form out. I've had this happen multiple times. I get these forms all the time from vendors. I know they can go out to our website and that's where they're getting them. I don't believe they are being directed there by the agency. So it's not on you, it's on that vendor. But if they want something, then I will contact them and say, I can't accept this form. However, tell me why you think you're not eligible to receive this. And if what they're saying kind of makes sense to me, I will send the question forward to you for you to complete the form. So internal form, not external. The NEC change request form, much simpler because really there's only one box involved. Same information up top. Please give me a reason for change because there again, nosy Nancy. And non-employee compensation up, down, 0. But there again, it's that beginning balance is only off of your 7940 or any 40 report. So if they were being reported as 0, but that really was not correct, it's should be a dollar amount, put it on that change to. So if a vendor has received a 1099 miscellaneous or NEC for payment that is not reportable, please submit the appropriate 1099 change request form if it's after January 17th. Change the amount from and then to or to the reduced amount or to 0 if appropriate. The amount of the change will be determined by the difference between the from amount listed and the to amount for your agency only. You notice I keep saying from your agency only. That's because after January 17th, the 43M and the 43N screens are populated, and some agencies go out there and look at it and they say, oh, well, the beginning balance is this, although my, might be $10,000, but my agency is only responsible for 1,000 of that. I don't want the 10,000 listed. I want the 1,000 that your agency is responsible for. Uh, because if you change it from 10,000 to 0 and there's another agency involved, you've just now impacted what their review of and they're responsible for. Anyway, so your agency only. Use the IRS box total number from the DAFR 7940 NE40 for the change from amount. I hope I'm expressing this clear enough that I only want your agency, from your agency, for your agency. Okay, ad reporting for a vendor after 117 is if a vendor payment needs to be included but was not, then verify the vendor was included, that the vendor should be included on the 52. So if that vendor is an N, they don't get a 1099. That's the first thing I'll check. If not, and they're not on the 52, they need to be added to the 52. And then submit the appropriate change request form and change it from 0 to the dollar amount. If the change is due to the vendor, due to a vendor organizational change, the vendor will be required to submit documentation of their change in from reportable to non-reportable status before reporting is removed, if not previously provided. Proof of incorporation or not-for-profit status change is required. Proof of the date of the sale of the entity may be necessary to provide. We'll always need a valid W-9 form. The date the change was effective. So if it actually was effective in the prior 1099 year, we're not going to adjust that. They had plenty of time to come forward and say, hey, 2023 was, we shouldn't have been reported in 2023. We had an organizational change. Too bad, so sad. We're not going back to 2023. We are only looking at 2024 at this point. But it may necessitate two changes for the vendor type, especially if it's a mid-year change. Depending if they're if the change if the change is a vendor number after 117, the process requires two change request forms. One 1099 change request form with the incorrect vendor number. And so we need to change the dollars from possibly from to 0 if it's a full year change. If it's a mid-year change, that vendor, we need the date of when that vendor changed their organizational type. And one 1099 change request form to the correct vendor number and 0 to the dollar amount, or it could be upping there. So they reported too little, so it's being changed from what was reported to a greater amount. And these two forms should be sent together. If an agency has a large number of changes, I'm saying 10 or more per type of 1099. These we prefer to be submitted on a spreadsheet, and I have the spreadsheet, so please do not create your own. Mine has been through review, and it has exactly what I want on it. And please contact me directly for the approved spreadsheet for this many changes. 10 or more. If you've got a lot of changes all at once for a specific form, I want it on this spreadsheet. But I want it on my spreadsheet, not on your spreadsheet. I know, so picky. Any profile updates that have been identified. through this process. Please make these through the vendor desk. So contact Tammy Lyons. Her email address is sfms1vendor@dasoregon.gov. Please use a vendor change request form for all vendor changes and updates. And there again, she's looking for the authorized people on her list for changes from your agency. So if you are not on that authorized change list and you send something to her to change, she's not going to change it. She's going to push it back to you. Okay. Any questions on changes? I know that this is a big part. It is a big part and it's a little part all at the same time. So nothing. Okay, well, I'm going to move on then. Okay, common vendor issues. Let's talk about this. If you have received information that a vendor's name is incorrect, all the TIN numbers must have a valid match and the vendor name on the IRS TIN match website. So we do this for every new vendor as we TIN match. If a vendor TIN match number is changed during the year, report on the vendor number that was paid up to the date of the vendor's ID was changed with the IRS if any other day than 1/1/24. So if you found out a vendor changed, had a change mid-year, and any payments were made to that vendor prior that change, it's going to be paid to the one vendor number, and then it may change over to the new vendor number. Update the 52, updated vendor information, new EIN. This may also change the vendor to an ineligible report. That's only on the ones after that change date. It doesn't impact the ones payments made before, but it should only impact when the change was valid and subsequent dates. Cross-reference vendor numbers will automatically roll payments into the current vendor if valid, if with a valid vendor number. The TIN number changed in the previous year but did not get updated. Okay, there again, we are not going to make corrections for the 2023 tax year. They had plenty of time to let us know. However, we will make the changes and or update the information for 2024. Payment was made to an incorrect vendor. Correction cannot be processed because if the vendor was paid, they cashed the check. The payment is reportable to the vendor that received the money and redeemed it, especially if they redeemed it. Payment was made to the right vendor, but the wrong vendor number. Okay, before January 17th, please process this through a T-code 415-416 transfer. After January 17th, you'll need to request the manual change request, MISC or NEC correction, depending on what payment type was used and or what form is correct. If a vendor appears to have incorrect coding on the 52, like I said, verify the following. If it's corporation or not-for-profit and is coded as 1099 eligible and should be indicated 1099 indicator of N. Always ask Tammy, why is it a Y? If there's any question on that, she has the documentation backing up those codings. If a vendor has not returned a valid W-9 form, they will be coded as reportable. Remember, we talked about that earlier. That's that vendor type 89 situation. No vendor coding change is necessary, and follow up with a 1099 change request form if it is needed. Now, I will take it to the 52. If I see that Y, if I see the 89, I'm going to ignore that change request form, send it back to you, and tell you why I'm going to let that 1099 fly. If the attorney is coded incorrectly as not reportable, and this can occasionally occur, please send a change request form to request a correction as soon as possible and follow up with the appropriate change request form 1099 miscellaneous box 10, if services were provided for the representation other than state or agency. And 1099 NEC box 7, if services were provided for representation of state of Oregon and or an agency. Okay, changes on a vendor profile may require revised 1099 forms to be generated if discovered after January 17th. So a change request is required for all reporting changes after this date. And I know I hit that awfully hard and it seems redundant, but I can't say it enough. It seems to happen every single year without fail. Okay, contractors with travel reimbursements covered by a grant or is part of a signed contract. SFMS takes the position, this is a hardline position, we take the position that these types of reimbursements should be reportable to the outside vendor as part of services that are rendered and that they are providing. Vendors should be reported with a 1099 NEC form as income to that vendor. And this includes if the state is paying for or reimbursing the amount for lodging with an overnight stay. So if you have any questions or if you know that this is happening and you just need to get it cleared in your mind, give me a call and I would be happy to individually walk you through this and we can talk about it. Why or why not? So any question on vendor changes? Pretty straightforward. They always happen. Okay. Are you still with me? Yes? Okay.
We're still here. Oh, we do have a question though.
Oh, yay! I love
If we,
questions.
they're the
If
best
we have,
for sure.
no.
If we
Go
have
ahead.
reportable, okay. If we have reportable travel reimbursements to employees that were reported to DAS payroll for taxability, does that still need to have a 1099 sent out as well?
Remember, employees get a W-2, they don't get a 1099. So if you're paying under an OR, one OR, whoever, for travel reimbursement, and it's reportable, then it's a W-2 issue. Now, that is not to say that if an employee goes out and perhaps helps fight fires with a side business that they have, and say they have a bulldozer they need that they use at rent and operate, and they work fires for the forestry. If there are reimbursable expenses, then it's under their, and this is probably the lone exception, this is when an employee is a vendor, not under their OR, you're paying them under their social security number. Anything reimbursement burst is on an NEC form. Bulldozer is the rent, their services are the NEC. What about former employees who get their travel reimbursements after they leave service? If they get that, they're still if they still should get a W-2. Please work with your payroll in-house on that. If they were employee or former employee that you're paying reimbursement to, they should be paid under their OR, one OR number. They should not be paid under their social security number. And those are a 3-type vendor. You know, they start with 3, blah, 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 blah. Regular vendor is a 1, blah, 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 blah. If it's a foreign vendor, it's a 2, blah, 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 blah. And this would apply to temps as well. Correct. But temps should there again not be reportable 1099. They should be on their W-2. Make sense? 1 OR is what you're looking for. If it's a 1 OR, A number 1, it's going to go on another report that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But you're looking for specific vendors that are outside the state of Oregon's control, essentially. They are not an employee, non-employee compensation. Okay? Okay, I love these questions. You guys are asking fantastic questions. You guys amaze me. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's talk about undeliverable 1099s because we get somewhere around, I would say almost, conservative guess is about 400 to 500 1099s that are returned to us from a direct mailing. 1099, and that includes both miscellaneous and NEC. And there again, 500 in the amount that we send out into the world in a given year is a very, very small percentage. So there again, kudos to you guys and your work that you guys do for this. I know it's a lot, but you're so important. Anyway, these forms will be produced and mailed from P&D to the name and the address on the 52 profile. It doesn't matter what MC you're paying off of. It is the parent profile that we send 1099s off of. That 51 MC000, which is the 52 screen. Any address that's one MC001, 002, we don't care. It's going to the profile on the 52, the address on the 52. These will be sent out on the first mailing will be on January 27th of 2025. The 1099 forms, if they are returned as undeliverable, here is the process. SFMS will notify the paying agency regarding the returned 1099 and request the vendor information be corrected on the 52 as soon as possible. And SFMS, prior to that notification of, oh, we got a return 1099, will inactivate all active vendor profiles associated with that tax ID, the returned tax ID. So if there are open MCs, we are going to inactivate them unless they're a DA, and then we give it an effective end date because we can't make it an I without wiping out the direct deposit, and we don't want to do that. So, but we will inactivate it. You cannot use them for payment until we get those dates, that address corrected on the 52. So we're going to ask you to provide an updated address as soon as possible by supplying the vendor change request form to the vendor desk. We will update the parent 52 profile and activate all the MC profiles as quickly as we get these so that if you need to make payments, we can get them out there as soon as possible. Here is a change starting this year with this process. SFMS is no longer going to remail the original forms to the vendor. We're going to return them via email to expedite the process of the vendor receiving them. So we're going to be asking you to send us the email that the vendor would like the 1099 to be sent to. Now be very, very careful here because if this is an ACH vendor, I prefer to send it to the address given that's on the 52 profile for that vendor. But if it's not, we're not going to change that email address. I don't want to change that email address because that's where notification for ACH payments are made, and I am not going to mess with that. But you can put on that vendor change request email 1099 to. This is the address that the vendor wants it sent to. And it could be directly to their accountant. And that's fine as long as the vendor authorizes it. But I need that an email address to send it because we are no longer physically mailing them out. It costs paper, it costs postage, it's expensive. I have had them come back to me after remailing them out, and it just gets all around frustrating. So starting in 2024, anything that's returned, we're going to email out, not remail. Please include the email on the change request form and in the notes unless the email address needs to be updated on the added to the profile. And we are only, I believe we will only update that email address if it is a non-ACH vendor. So if the PDT is DA, it is staying the same, because at that point we need the authorized signer, I believe, to approve the change to the email address. But I'm not messing with Loretta's ACH vendors. I'm just not. If the vendor requests a copy of the 1099 miscellaneous or NEC, confirm that the vendor did receive a 1099 from the state of Oregon. So you're going to look at your DAFR 7940. You can look at your NE40. You can look at the 43M or the 43N. If that vendor is not on any of those, or if they're not on or the 40, and especially if they're not on the 43M or N, they did not receive a 1099. If they did, then go ahead and complete the 1099 copy request form as a Word document. Please keep it a Word document, because down below I have stuff that I need to complete too. Put the vendor number in, the vendor name, and then a form for every tax year. I know that's a pain in the tuchus, but it's important because I keep track of these things. And we will email for tax year 2023 and 2024. And we will email only. We will not mail out, with one exception. If they are also requesting tax year 22 or earlier, it can all go in one mail package. But I prefer the email method. And anything for tax year 2020 through 2022, please verify, double check, triple check that the address on the 52 vendor profile is correct, because these still need to be mailed through the United States Postal Service. And remember, 1099 forms are retained for 4 tax years. This is by IRS. And please link a link to the copy of a 1099 copy request form. It's on the SFMS website under forms, as are the 1099 change request forms. So basically, this is also an internal form to the state of Oregon. So vendors should not fill these out and send them to me, because it's internal. They don't know what I'm asking. Anyway, complete this top section, basically your request date, who's the agency, and please give your agency 3-digit number here, and then requested by. Request, and that's just, they're basically click, tap, fill out. And then must have the vendor number, vendor name, the form requested, and the delivery method. Remember, I am mailing only if 22 or earlier. I assume it's going to be an email, and these are just check boxes for which form, check boxes for mail or email. Did you check the 52? Is it correct? If it is not correct and you need the information changed, please make the change here. And so I can mail it out and send a vendor change request to Tammy Lyons at the SFMS vendor desk. And then email their email that the vendor wants it sent to, and then email the form to me as a Word document. Because like I said, I have stuff. So, form to be completed by SFMS only. And if this form is sent as a PDF document, I will reject it and send it back to you and say, please put this as a Word document, because I will log in the form. I fulfill the request for the copy. I communicate with the agency when the request has been sent. I save the request and the form as a part of the backup. The other part I do is I send the emails as uh, 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 pretty much received, sent, a sent confirmation, and I put all this packet to make a complete packet. All of this goes together, and it forms a complete package. So if there are any questions of why did you send this? Who asked me to send it? Why did I receive this? I have this all on this form. So any questions on the process of a return 1099 or 1099 copy requests?
We do have one, or we have a couple, it looks like.
Okay.
The IRS requires consent from the vendor to send 1099 by email. Does a phone call to the vendor allow this as consent to send by email?
Yes,
Perfect.
absolutely.
And then when changes are required to the vendor profile on the 1099 copy request form are needed, do you send the vendor change request or does the agency?
Um, if the person, I would prefer that you send that through, I prefer that you send that through Tammy, to Tammy, a change request, and I'll use the address that you have put on there to mail out the form. Does that make sense? So you might have to do two different forms. Mine for me, and number two, a change request for Tammy.
Awesome.
Because
Thank you for
I use that address. And sometimes it's because we do have some snowbird vendors. And so occasionally the address is correct on that, on the 52 screen, but they want it sent someplace else for receipt. And so, yeah, that email address is, or the mailing address is I need that because that's what I literally use when I make the address labels. Okay. Okay. Oh, let's take a brief foray into volunteer payments. I know not all of you deal with this. A lot of you might have board members, though. Some of you might have board members as well. So they're considered volunteers for most of the part. Meals are reportable income to volunteers unless they are associated with an overnight stay. Then, like employees, the overnight stay says, oh, this is not a reportable event. Volunteer drivers are not medical transport. Travel is paid at a reduced rate per the IRS, so it's 14 cents a mile. So if you're paying full employee IRS travel rate, just know that anything above that 14 cents is potentially reportable to that volunteer. If a higher, so the difference, yeah. But you still need to meet the box $600 NEC. I mean, unless they're driving over to the East Coast, I doubt if they'll do it in one trip. Volunteers do not provide medical services, nor should they be reported as a 1099 miscellaneous box 6. Must meet reporting amount on NEC box 1 to be reported to the IRS. So just that $600 just seems to be the magic number. Keep that in mind. Non-reportable travel comp objects for volunteers, for board members, when agencies do not want to split out meals and lodging on reimbursement basis. Please use the following comp objects. 4104 is the in-state travel. 4111 is in-state mileage reimbursement for volunteers. 112 is reimbursement for non-employee. 154 is out-of-state travel. 164 out-of-state mileage for volunteers. 165 mileage out-of-state reimbursed to non-employee, and 446 is employee recruit travel reimbursement. You may reclass payments to volunteers or board members to these non-reportable comp objects before December month end close. If it is determined by the agency that a corrected 1099 miscellaneous or NEC is needed for the prior year, go ahead and send the appropriate 1099 change request form to me as soon as possible. Specify and highlight however you want. You can even do it in the email to me saying this is for year that is being corrected. Just so you know, prior year corrections will not be processed. They can't really be processed until the current year schedule is complete and processed through April. So the first one that will go out actually would be May 1st if it's a prior year. We have a number of profiles that we use for 1099s and the electronic reporting that need to be changed. And this is to make sure we don't screw up the current tax year. We don't want to make those changes until May. So please let them know that yes, they will be made, they will go out, but they will be the beginning of May is when I do. And to answer another question that I seem to get a lot, yes, if there is a correction that needs to be made and we are through all of the scheduled, planned changes, I will make those changes. We can do them. 1, 2, 3, however many you need made uh, in the year, up to probably October 31st or October 1st, I would ask those changes stop coming in. But if it's necessary, if this is an emergency basis, I can make those changes. However, be aware that the electronic filing system does go down. And this year it went down particularly early for updating. It went down, you can no longer report any electronic files after November 22nd. And it will not be back online until January 7th. That is an exceedingly long time amount of time that they are down this year. Normally they're back up on the 2nd or 3rd. Normally they don't close down until December 15th or 16th. So I'm not exactly sure what changes they're making to their system, but apparently they're pretty hefty because it's down this year already. So if you sent me changes this year for 2023, even though I could have done it on November 21st. I can't do them, and they won't be done now until May 1st. Okay, the EO99 report. We've kind of been dancing around this report and the purpose of this report for quite some time. The EO99 report is a report that is for state employees, those 1 OR numbers that receive payments using a reportable comp object. No 1099 will be issued to an OR number. They are excluded. So they don't have an SSN on the 52, so there's no algorithm, and they should be listed on the EO99 report. If there are reportable payments made to employees that did not pertain to their job, these payments should be reported on potentially on a 1099 NEC, but those employees are employees that provide services through their established business and businesses not paid using SSN. They actually should be paid through the SSN. We need to add the employee using the SSN and then complete the 1099. Complete the 1099 NEC change request to add the income to be reported. So these are the employees that go out and fight fires or provide other services where they have other clients, they have a legitimate business, and they've done some services for the state of Oregon in the capacity of this business. Those people should receive an NEC and services, but if they were accidentally paid over as their OR, should not be reported on the W-2. What should be reported on the W-2, if it's to be included on their W-2, is on the EO99 report. And this is actually this year going to be, EO99 report is coming out on the January the 21st. The report will be created on January 21st and be viewable and pulled down by the agency on the 22nd. So reimbursement for employee expenses, travel, fringe benefits, and awards aren't reportable for 1099, but they could be on the W-2, depending on the circumstances. Use the EO99 report to review and confirm the expenses are appropriate. Backup verification, make sure you have it and tie it to the payment. Payments identify as having potential to be reported to income to the employee should be sent to the agency payroll team as soon as possible. Please work with your in-house payroll team to identify any W-2 inclusions that need to be made. So they may need to do a W-2 correction due to this report. I know in the past it's primarily been the TA, which is they pay the prior to travel. And so those are the ones you're specifically looking at. Yeah, look at it all. Be diligent, be thorough. Okay, so processing timelines. The 7940 and NE40 reports will be generated coming up on the last working day of December on 12/31, and a December month-end close for January 17th is when they'll be generated, viewable to the agency next day. It is important that the report generated on the 17th is saved by the agency. As previously noted in this training, these reports will continue to be used throughout the tax season for research and questions that may arise by the vendor. These reports will be accessible electronically by the agency as a control report. So they'll be out there for at least 30 days. If you do not receive your reports, contact me or your SFMS analyst as soon as possible. Okay, here's our processing timeline. And for those of you who don't know, this timeline is also on the 2025 calendar that is on the SFMS website, blatant plug. It's a great calendar to use. It has lots of useful information, but specifically has information regarding these dates are notated on that calendar. So if you want something tangible, it's out there. So the final day for agency to make online corrections, T-code 415-416, using an effective date of 12/31/24, that night after the batch, during the day, you can make those corrections up to that timeline. After 5:30, when the system is changed over, month-end close is tagged. During the batch cycling that night, the 43M and the 43N screens are populated. Now, the 43M is obviously M miscellaneous and is the NEC form. Agencies should be able to view these two screens if you have the correct user class. It's user class dependent. On January 21st, the report is run for employee using reportable comp objects, the EO99 report, 099, I should say. And then on January 23rd is the last day to request manual changes for both forms prior to the original printing of those forms and them going out into the mail. Reminder, if the agency is requesting 10 or greater changes per form, please try to notify SFMS as soon as possible, as soon as you know, so that I can send you that approved spreadsheet so you can make those changes and resend it back to me. Yeah, we're printing on the 24th. Okay, so the reason I say the 23rd, that gives me the 24th to finish processing any changes, and the print file for the 1099s are being sent to P&D on the 23rd, and they should get it out the week of the 27th. So January 31st, 2025 is when the 1099 NEC is to be electronically filed with not only IRS, but our Oregon Department of Revenue through the iWire system for the Department of Revenue. I'll be filing through the FIRE system for the IRS. Okay, January's happened. A lot has happened in January for all of us. Most of you are going, phew, I'm done with 1099s. But a few of you will need to continue on. In February, we're planning to print on any corrections for NEC and any adjustments for miscellaneous to be mailed out of print plant. We're doing it again on the 20th. So any corrected NEC forms or adjusted miscellaneous forms that have been discovered, will be done then. And then we will again submit the NEC electronic file for correction to the IRS or DOR as needed on the 28th of February. In March, we have 2 printing corrections again on the 6th and then on the 20th. I say adjusted for the MISC because until we file with the IRS, these are adjustments, so they won't come across as corrected on the forms. It'll come across as just like it's a brand new form. They can throw away their previous form. This is the form, because this, until it's reported to the IRS, it's not a done deal. It's a moving target for the miscellaneous only. NEC was reported back at the end of January, so those will come across as corrected forms to the IRS and to the vendor. So on 3/31, we need to file the original file of all the miscellaneous reports with IRS and DOR, and we will be sending out the 1099 NEC correction files to the IRS and DOR. In April, we have the last 2 scheduled printings. So we will send the corrected forms for both NEC and MISC on April 10th, if there are any. Generally speaking, in April by now, I'm getting 1, maybe 2 or 3. Really small number. You guys are so good. Here again, it's your due diligence, and you guys are just fantastic. On April 30th, it's the final planned filing for 2024. So NEC and MISC, if any corrections have been printed, we need to report to the IRS. And then this is the end of all scheduled 1099s. But that doesn't mean that the agency cannot request corrections after April. It only means that these will be done on an ad hoc basis going forward. And if the agency discovers additional changes, please notify us immediately to discuss the processing and timelines to be provided to the affected vendor so that you can kind of keep in track, contact with them as well and keep them on the know. Okay, reporting information returns to DAS. This is just a disclaimer. Department of Administration Services does not provide nor maintain a system for entities to file 1099 forms with the state of Oregon. Please see Department of Revenue website for information regarding filing 1099 forms with the state of Oregon. It's through the iWire system, not DAS. That's a question I get every year. It's fun. I love my job. Okay, any supplemental information? There can be 1099 miscellaneous income as well as NEC income on the same invoice. If your agency has rental equipment, machinery, it's box 1, reportable, as well as services, which is box 1 NEC, and they are clearly itemized. If the rent is used of the equipment or machinery is a loan on an itemized invoice and was $600 or more, it the rental on box 1 miscellaneous. If the service is to set up operational use of the equipment or machinery was $600 or more and is itemized, NEC box 1. If the rental setup, operation, use of the rental equipment are all in one bill and not itemized, the cost of the $600 or more is box 1 rental, MISC. Okay? So itemized, split it out, not itemized, rental. Okay, we suggest a checklist prior to 1099 production. Let's see. Identify which vendors to use. Basically, guys can go through this. I'm coming down to 3 minutes, so I'm going to rush through these last slides. I apologize, but it's in your PDF, so please, you can use it, don't use it. It's on the agency on this one, but identify which agency your vendors are. Agency uses, are they reportable? Review the IRS regulations or enclosed filing guidelines to become familiar with what type of taxpayer identification is required for reporting. Where do they need to be reported? Are they a miscellaneous? Are they an NEC? Depends what box. Contact the vendor if possible if changes from to above to verify correct information on the file to update information for accurate reporting. Review vendor activity, of course, 7940, NE40. I don't think I can beat that one to death any more than I have. And then review purchases or confer with other accounting staff to verify if this is a reportable activity or not that's been buried in capital outlay or other expenditure objects not captured in the accounting system as reportable. And verify any adjustments made manually, such as warrants returned for cancellation or stop, are reflected on those reports. Where can you find out more information about 1099s? Go to irs.gov and also use the link to download forms, publication, or other resources. Any final questions? Ooh, looks like something. Okay.
So, did you want me to read it? This is my first exposure. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
This is my first exposure to the 1099 process, so I want to make sure that I understand correctly. Travel payments made to board members using an OR number will not appear on the DAFRA reports, but will only appear on W-2s if we have submitted taxability info to payroll.
Correct. And to confirm, the EO99 report is available on 122. Correct, because the EO99 report is employees that are using a 1099 099 comp object. So it's really for you to use with your payroll group and to issue corrected W-2s, not for 1099 purposes. Why doesn't DAS do 1099 Gs? I love you. No. No, we don't do 1099-Gs because those are grants and those are strictly done through the agencies. Uh, and so we just have never taken those on, honestly. Uh, uh, anyway, I do want you to know that at the very end of this presentation are all of the reportable comp objects uh, in our stars, broken out by MISC and NEC. So we did provide that. I just didn't feel the need to go through them in the presentation. Um, so so you should have them, but it's at the back of the presentation. Oh, do you have any resources for the 1099-Gs? As far as what, Deborah? 1099-G is not grants. It is for government payments such as tax refunds, unemployment, other services. Oh, I was under the impression that the G was grants. I honestly don't know enough about 1099-Gs to address, but as far as the information, that is probably best served either using the best query tool that your agency has, be it OBI or I know we're starting to play with BI, Power BI. And the comp objects list should be page 85 and beyond. Uh, uh, 85 and beyond at the end of this on the PDF. You did include this, didn't you, Amber?
Yep, it's all there. Yeah.
Okay.
They have, yep. There is a question from Karen, and she wants to know if it would be possible to get preliminary 1099 reports around June that would allow for any adjustments prior to year or biennium end.
We start sending out reports at the end of the third quarter month end. So September is the first one, which is mid-October. I will consult to see if this is something they want to do, but my guess is that's not moving anytime soon. And you, like I said, you may, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that goes into that programming. And I'm not sure they want to give it to you. You know, June is really tough. You've got the ACFR, and most agencies are so focused in on that ACFR through August into September that I think that's why we don't do our reports and have people focused in on the 1099s until after October or into October. So it gives the agency time to get through the ACFR process, which is so important. Okay, thank you for attending today's class. I went a couple minutes over. And please contact me if you have any additional questions. Even July or August would be good. Oh, we have some concerts that we will be inactivating. Okay. Okay, it's good to know. I'll ask the powers that be, but my guess is that's middle of ACFR season and they're not going to want to do it. That's my guess, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Thank you for attending. Please feel free to contact me if you have any additional questions regarding 1099s. And I'm also available on Teams. So guys, have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed the training. And like I said, questions will arise. I'm here for you.